The isolation chamber. The reflection in the polished metal surface made Aya flinch. Her purple skin had once been smooth and uniform like all Zephyrians, but now bore irregular patterns where it had failed to regenerate properly after the laboratory accident. The patterns sprawled across her shoulders and neck like fractured glass, catching light in ways that made others of her kind turn away. Structural integrity compromised was the official medical designation, but what it really meant was that she was broken, imperfect, unworthy. Aya adjusted the protective covering that shrouded her form and turned away from her reflection. "Computer initiate daily log," she whispered. "Day 43 at Nexus Station specimen collection proceeding. As scheduled, no anomalies to report." The lie hung in the recycled air of her private quarters. The anomaly was her, and everyone on Zephyria knew it. That's why she had volunteered for this isolated research post, orbiting a forgotten dwarf star. No one to stare, no one to whisper. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Incoming transmission from Earth Science Division. The computer announced. Aya straightened her covering. Except the holographic display flickered to life, revealing a human, man with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Hello, Station Nexus. This is Dr. Chen from Earth's Xenobiology Department. I'm scheduled to arrive tomorrow to begin our collaborative research." She had forgotten about the human arrival the Council had mentioned it months ago, but Aya had been too focused on escaping Zephyria to pay attention. "Dr. Chen," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, "we weren't expecting you for another cycle." "The transport had a favorable trajectory," he explained, leaning closer to the camera. "I hope it's not an inconvenience." Aya's inner membranes fluttered with anxiety. Humans were notoriously direct with their gaze. How could she work alongside someone who would surely notice her flaws? "Not at all," she lied. "Again, I'll prepare the secondary lab." After the transmission ended, Aya paced her quarters. Her people, the Zephyrians, valued perfection above all else. Their crystalline biology was meant to be flawless, a reflection of their advanced evolution. The patterns on her skin marked her as defective, unable to maintain the pure light refraction that was the hallmark of their species. When the accident happened 3 years ago, her colleagues had grown increasingly uncomfortable around her. Some suggested she undergo molecular dissolution and reconstitution, essentially death and rebirth, with no guarantee of maintaining her consciousness or memories. Instead, she chose exile. The station shuddered slightly as the transport ship docked. 12 hours later, Aya stood rigidly in the reception area, her protective coverings arranged to reveal as little of her skin as possible. The airlock hissed open, and Dr. Chen stepped through carrying a single case. His eyes found hers immediately. "You must be Scientist Aya," he said with a warm smile. "Thank you for hosting me." "Welcome to Nexus Station," she replied formally. "I've prepared your quarters and laboratory access." As they walked through the station's curved corridors, Dr. Chen asked questions about her research, but never once about her coverings or why she alone staffed a station designed for 6. She explained her work studying stellar radiation effects on biological samples, while maintaining careful distance. "Your species has remarkable cellular regeneration," he commented as they entered the lab. "That's why I requested this collaboration." Aya felt her secondary heart flutter. "Most Zephyrians do," she replied softly. Dr. Chen tilted his head, studying her for a moment, but not all. The question hung between them. Aya felt exposed despite her coverings. "No," she finally admitted, "not all." To her surprise, he simply nodded. "Variation is the foundation of evolutionary advancement," he said, turning to unpack his equipment. "Without differences, there can be no adaptation, no growth. On Zephyria, difference is considered failure." Dr. Chen stopped unpacking and looked at her directly. "On Earth, we've learned that what appears to be failure often leads to the most important discoveries." His expression was earnest without pity. "I'm looking forward to learning from you, Aya, not despite your differences, but because of them." For the first time in years, someone looked at her without judgment. Something warm and unfamiliar bloomed beneath Aya's protected skin. As she helped Dr. Chen arrange his equipment, she found herself wondering if perhaps isolation wasn't the only way to survive being different. Frequencies of trust. 3 weeks into their collaboration, and Aya found herself spending less time adjusting her protective coverings. She still wore them, but the obsessive checking had diminished. "Dr. Chen, please call me Kai," he had insisted. On the 3rd day, treated her with such casual normalcy that sometimes she almost forgot about the fractured patterns beneath. "Could you pass me the spectral analyzer?" Kai asked. Not looking up from the sample he was examining, Aya reached for the device, her covering slipping slightly at the wrist, revealing a flash of purple skin with its irregular crystalline patterns. She flinched automatically. Kai glanced up. "Thank you," he said, his eyes briefly noting her exposed skin before returning to his work. No disgust, no pity, just acknowledgement. They worked in comfortable silence for another hour before Kai stretched and tapped a control on the lab console. Soft, unfamiliar sounds filled the room. "What is that?" Aya asked, her auditory receptors adjusting to the strange patterns. "Music." Kai smiled. "Earth music specifically. A composer named Debussy. This piece is called Clair de Lune. It helps me think." Aya listened, her head tilting slightly. "It's not mathematically precise. The timing varies." "That's what makes it beautiful," Kai explained, leaning against the lab table. "The imperfections, the slight hesitations, the unexpected pauses. It's called rubato, a stealing of time. On Zephyria, our music follows exact geometric progressions," she said. "Any deviation is considered a failure of technique." Kai's expression softened. "Would you play some for me sometime? Your music?" The request surprised her. No one had ever asked to hear her play. "I haven't performed since." Her voice trailed off, her hand unconsciously touching her covered shoulder. "Since your accident?" he asked gently. Aya's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "I've read the Zephyrian medical journals. Your species has remarkable regenerative abilities, but occasionally there are anomalies." His voice remained casual, clinical, even as he added, "I assumed from your coverings that you might have experienced such an anomaly." She should have felt exposed, violated, but instead there was relief. Someone understood without her having to explain. "It happened 3 years ago," she said quietly. "A containment field collapsed during an experiment. The energy patterns disrupted my cellular matrix. My skin can no longer maintain uniform, crystalline structure." Kai nodded. "And on Zephyria, that's considered defective," she finished. "And here at Nexus Station?" Aya blinked. "What do you mean? What do you consider it here, away from your people's judgment?" The question stunned her. I had never separated the physical reality from the cultural interpretation. She opened her mouth to answer when the station alarm blared. "Warning, approaching meteor shower, collision imminent, proceed to safety protocols." Kai moved instantly. "Where's the nearest shelter?" "My quarters," Aya replied, already moving. "This section has insufficient shielding." They rushed through corridors as the station's AI continued warnings. The first impacts rocked the station, sending them stumbling against walls. Kai caught Aya's arm, steadying her as they reached her private quarters. "Computer engage emergency protocols," she commanded. The lights dimmed to emergency blue as reinforced shields deployed. Another impact, larger than before, sent them both tumbling to the floor. Kai instinctively wrapped his arms around Aya, cushioning her fall. They landed with her partially on top of him. Her coverings twisted and displaced. In the dim blue light, Kai looked up at her. His eyes widened, not with disgust, but with wonder. Aya realized with horror that her shoulder and neck were completely exposed. The fractured purple skin with its irregular patterns fully visible. She scrambled to cover herself, but Kai gently caught her hand. "Aya," he whispered. "It's beautiful." She froze. "What?" "Your skin," he said. It catches the light like nothing I've ever seen, the patterns they're like. He searched for words, like nebulae, like star formations. No one had ever described her condition that way. Her people saw only broken ugliness. You don't need to say that, she said, pulling away. I know what I am. Kai sat up, but gave her space. I'm not saying it to be kind. I'm saying it because it's true. His voice was soft but firm. On Earth we have something called kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, making the breaks part of the beauty. The station shuddered again, but less violently. The meteor shower was passing. Computer damage report. Aya called, grateful for the distraction. Minor damage to external sensors. Station integrity at 92%, repairs underway. Kai stood, offering his hand. Are you all right? Aya took his hand, allowing him to help her up. Yes. She began rearranging her coverings but paused when she caught his expression. You don't need those around me, he said carefully. Not unless they make you more comfortable. Something shifted inside her like tectonic plates realigning. They've become habit, she admitted, a shield against judgment. I'm not judging you, Aya, he said with such simple honesty that she believed him. Later that evening, after repairs were underway, Kai invited her to his quarters. He had set up a small projector that displayed Earth art across the walls. This is Van Gogh, he explained, as swirling stars and cypress trees filled the room. He saw the world differently than most humans. His brush strokes weren't smooth or perfect, but they captured something true. Aya studied the images, transfixed. These imperfections were celebrated? They defined him, Kai said, made his work instantly recognizable, made it matter. He showed her more. Artists, musicians, dancers, all creating beauty through variation, through difference, through what Zephyrians would call flaws. As she left his quarters that night, Aya paused at the door. The music you asked about earlier, she said hesitantly, I could play some tomorrow if you're interested. Kai's smile was warm, genuine. I'd like that very much. Walking back to her quarters, Aya's fingers brushed against her covering. For the first time in years, she wondered what it might feel like to be seen, truly seen, not as broken, but as something else entirely. Something that might possibly be beautiful in a different way. The bridge between worlds. Your hand position is fascinating, Kai observed as Aya's fingers danced across the crystalline instrument she had crafted from materials in the lab. The sound it produced was unlike anything he'd heard before. Mathematically, precise yet somehow haunting. Aya's protective coverings were looser today, revealing more of her purple skin with its unique patterns. As she played her final note, she noticed Kai watching her with undisguised admiration. That was the sequence of harmonic resonance, she explained. A traditional piece taught to all Zephyrian children. It's extraordinary, Kai said, leaning forward. The way you've modified the fingering to accommodate your unique patterns, it creates overtones that wouldn't exist otherwise. Aya stilled. I didn't realize I was doing that. She examined her hands where the fractured crystalline patterns created different pressure points. My teachers would say I've corrupted the composition. And what would you say? Kai asked. Before she could answer, the station alert chimed. Incoming vessel authorized diplomatic transport from Zephyria, request for immediate docking. Aya's secondary heart fluttered with anxiety. Computer identify passengers. Passenger manifest. Indicates Commander Rena of the Zephyrian Science Council. No. Aya whispered, her covering suddenly feeling too loose, too revealing. Why would they send her? Kai moved closer but didn't touch her, respecting her evident distress. Who is Commander? Rena, my former supervisor. Aya's voice was tight. She recommended my temporary reassignment after the accident, a polite term for exile. Kai's expression hardened. I'll meet with her. You don't have to. No. Aya straightened, finding unexpected. Resolve. This is my station, my assignment. I will greet her. She quickly adjusted her coverings, ensuring every irregular pattern was hidden. When Commander Rena stepped through the airlock, her tall, crystalline form was flawless, perfectly uniform. lavender skin that caught the light and refracted it in geometric precision, the embodiment of Zephyrian ideals. Scientist Aya. Rena's voice was cool, formal. The council sends greetings. Her eyes shifted to Kai. And you must be the Earth scientist, Dr. Kaichin. He introduced himself with a slight bow. Welcome to Nexus Station. Rena barely acknowledged him, her attention returning to Aya. The council is concerned about your research parameters. There are rumors of unauthorized experimental protocols. My work follows all approved guidelines, Aya replied, keeping her voice steady. Then you won't mind my review. It wasn't a question. Rena moved past them, heading toward the lab. The council has authorized me to remain until satisfied that all protocols are being maintained, particularly regarding interspecies contamination. The word hung in the air like a threat. Kai stepped forward. Commander, with respect, the Earth-Zephyrian Science Treaty grants mutual research autonomy. Our work does not concern Earth diplomacy. Rena cut him off. This is an internal Zephyrian matter. Scientist Aya's unique condition requires careful monitoring. Aya felt herself shrinking beneath Rena's perfect gaze, the old shame returning. The days that followed were tense. Rena observed their work with critical eyes, documenting everything in reports to the council. Her presence cast a shadow over the easy rhythm Aya and Kai had established. Aya found herself retreating back into rigid formality, wearing her coverings tightly secured. One evening, as they worked late in the lab, Rena finally spoke directly about what had been unspoken. The council notices you've been spending excessive time with the human, she said, when Kai had stepped out. They're concerned about contamination. Dr. Chen is a respected xenobiologist. Aya replied, focusing on her samples. Our collaboration is producing valuable data. I'm not referring to scientific contamination. Rena's voice dropped. Your condition makes you vulnerable to outside influence. Your fractured patterns already deviate from our biological norms. Prolonged exposure to alien biology, especially emotional exposure, could accelerate the deterioration. Aya's hands stilled. That's theoretical, not proven. The council disagrees. Rena moved closer, her perfect form reflecting light in sharp contrast to Aya's covered imperfections. They're considering recalling you for molecular restructuring. For your own protection, molecular restructuring. The procedure would erase her consciousness, her memories, herself, all to restore perfect crystalline uniformity. I've declined that option before. Aya said, her voice surprisingly steady. My work here is important. Is it the work that keeps you here? Rena asked. Or the way the human looks at you? Before Aya could respond, the station alarms blared. Warning, solar flare detected, radiation surge imminent, all personnel to shielded areas. The lab doors slid open as Kai rushed in. We need to get to the central core. The outer labs aren't sufficiently protected. They moved quickly through corridors following emergency protocols. When they reached the central hub, Rena stopped suddenly. The council's data crystal. I left it in the communication suite. Leave it, Kai urged. We can retrieve it after. It contains classified information. Rena turned back. I must secure it. I'll go, Aya said. My cellular structure can withstand brief radiation exposure better than yours. Before either could argue, she was moving back down the corridor. The radiation alarms grew louder as she approached the communication suite. She located Rena's crystal and secured it. Just as the first wave hit, pain seared through her exposed skin. The fractured patterns in her crystalline structure that already struggled to maintain cohesion began to destabilize. She stumbled back toward the central hub, each step becoming harder. As her body fought to maintain form, she collapsed just outside the shielded. Dr. Kai's face appearing above her as darkness edged her vision. Aya. His voice seemed distant. Hold on. She felt his hands on her skin, direct contact against her now exposed patterns, her protective coverings having fallen away in her collapse. The touch should have been excruciating in her destabilized state. Instead, there was warmth, a steadying something in his human biology. his different molecular structure that didn't repel, but somehow complemented her fractured patterns. "Don't let go," she whispered as consciousness faded. When she awoke hours later, she was in the medical bay. Kai beside her, his hand still resting gently on her arm. Her coverings were gone, her purple fractured skin fully visible. "What happened?" she asked her, voice rough. "The radiation affected your molecular cohesion," Kai explained, his face drawn with concern. "But there was an unexpected reaction when I touched you. Your patterns began to stabilize in response to human biochemistry." From the doorway, Commander Rena watched her expression unreadable. "The Council will want a full report on this anomaly," she said. "Human Zephyrian cellular compatibility has never been documented, especially with a compromised subject." "I'm not a subject," Aya said, suddenly finding strength. "And what happened wasn't an anomaly. It was adaptation." Rena's perfect features showed the slightest crack of emotion. "Was it fear?" "The Council will determine that." She turned to leave, then paused. "Your coverings are being repaired. You should wear them when they're ready." After she left, Kai's thumb traced small circles on Aya's exposed arm. "Are you in pain?" he asked. "No," she answered truthfully. "Your touch, it feels." She searched for words. "Harmonizing." His eyes met hers, filled with something she was only beginning to recognize. "Aya, what Rena said about the Council recalling you." "I won't go," she interrupted, surprising herself with her certainty. "My work is here, my life is here." What she didn't say hung between them. "My heart is here." Kai's fingers interlaced with hers, a bridge between worlds. "Then we'll find a way to make them understand what's happening between us," he promised. "Whatever this is. It isn't contamination, it's connection." Luminous surrender. The medical bay lights dimmed as night cycle began. Aya sat on the edge of the examination table, her purple skin uncovered. The fracture patterns caught the low light, creating a subtle glow that illuminated Kai's face as he recorded readings. "Your cellular stability has improved 20% since yesterday," he noted, looking up from his scanner. "The resonance between your crystalline structure and my biochemistry is unprecedented." Aya's fingers brushed against his arm, testing this new connection. "On Zephyria, we're taught that our light must remain pure, untainted," she whispered. "But this feels like something greater than purity." Kai set aside his equipment, moving closer until they were breathing the same recycled station air. "What does it feel like to you?" he asked, his voice low. "Completion," she admitted, "as though my patterns were waiting for this complementary frequency." His hand reached up, hesitating just above her cheek. "May I?" Aya nodded, her secondary heart fluttering beneath her skin. His palm cupped her face, warm against cool crystal. The touch sent ripples of sensation through her fractured patterns, places once painful, now awakening with new awareness. Her skin responded, glowing brighter where they connected. "You're luminescent," Kai whispered in awe. She raised her hand to his face, mirroring his touch, exploring the unfamiliar texture of human skin. The differences that once seemed so foreign now felt essential, perfect in their contrast. "I never thought I would be touched again," Aya confessed. "Not like this, not without disgust or clinical detachment. I could never look at you that way." Kai's thumb traced the edge of a crystalline pattern. "You're the most beautiful being I've ever encountered." Their foreheads touched, an intimate gesture in both their cultures, a sharing of thought, energy, frequency, life. In the observation room, Commander Rena watched the monitors, her perfect features tight. With disapproval, she activated her secure channel, Council Priority Transmission. She spoke quietly. "The contamination is worse than anticipated. The human's influence has accelerated. Subject Aya's deviation. She's developing unprecedented luminescent responses to his biochemistry request, immediate extraction protocol." Meanwhile, Kai's lips found Aya's an entirely human gesture she'd read about but never experienced. The sensation was electric. Her entire body responded, her purple skin glowing, with patterns of light that had never existed before. They moved together, discovering the beautiful language their different bodies could speak. Each touch, each connection, creating new harmonies. That night, as station lights dimmed to their lowest setting, they explored the universe that existed between alien and human, between broken and whole, finding that neither word held meaning anymore. Only connection. Only this bridge between stars. New constellations. The Council's message was coldly, "Official scientist Aya, you are hereby recalled to Zephyria for immediate molecular restructuring. Your condition has deteriorated beyond acceptable parameters. Commander Rena will escort you home in 3 cycles." Aya stood in the communications room, her uncovered skin glowing with a new confidence. "I respectfully decline," Rena stepped forward. "This isn't a request. Your biological integrity is compromised. The human's influence has helped me evolve," Aya interrupted. "My cellular patterns have stabilized in new configurations. My research shows—" "Your research is contaminated," Rena snapped. "As are you. The Council has reviewed Dr. Chen's data. The cellular bonding between your species is unprecedented, dangerous. It violates our most sacred biological principles." Kai, who had been silent, spoke. "What if we could prove it isn't contamination but complementary resonance? A new form of biological harmony?" "Impossible," Rena dismissed. "Actually," Kai moved to the lab console, bringing up complex molecular models. "We've discovered something remarkable. When Aya's fractured crystalline patterns interact with human biochemistry, they don't degrade. They transform, creating stable configurations that are stronger than either original form." He activated a holographic display showing time-lapse images of Aya's skin. The patterns that once seemed broken now formed complex geometric structures that pulsed with light and life. "This isn't corruption," Aya said, placing her hand within the hologram. "It's adaptation evolution. The very principles Zephyrians have always valued. Not stasis, but growth. The Council will never accept this." Rena's voice held something new. "Uncertainty, then we'll find those who will," Kai replied, stepping beside Aya, their hands intertwining, creating a new surge of luminescence. "The neutral colony at Proxima Station has requested xenobiology specialists. Their charter protects scientific and personal freedom." Rena watched their connected hands, the undeniable beauty of the light they created together. For a moment, her perfect facade cracked. "The Council won't pursue you if you formally resign your Zephyrian commission," she said quietly. "I could report that your condition made you unsuitable for return transport." Aya studied her former supervisor, seeing perhaps for the first time the weight of perfection Rena carried. "Thank you." 2 cycles later, as they prepared to board the transport to Proxima, Aya stood at the observation deck. Her reflection no longer made her flinch. The purple fractured patterns now pulsed with harmonious light, beautiful in their complexity, their uniqueness, their truth. "Ready?" Kai asked, joining her, his reflection appearing beside hers in the glass almost. She turned to face him, her uncovered skin radiant in the starlight. "When I was assigned to this station, I thought isolation was my only option. Now I understand that finding connection, finding you, was the true healing." His fingers traced the now familiar patterns along her arm, sending ripples of light across her skin. "We're charting new territory," he said, "not just scientifically. A new constellation," she agreed, leaning into his touch as their transport pulled away from Nexus Station. Aya watched through the viewport as the place of her exile, her rebirth, became a distant point of light. She no longer needed to hide, no longer feared being seen. Her fractured beauty now recognized not as brokenness but as evolution. Years later, researchers would document the Aya Chen phenomenon, the harmonious biological resonance between different species, creating stronger, more adaptable life forms. Their work would open new understanding of interspecies connection, challenging ancient prejudices and expanding the definition of beauty across the galaxy. But in that moment aboard the transport, Aya knew only the simple truth that had changed everything. Sometimes the most profound healing comes not from becoming whole again, but from finding someone who loves the beautiful patterns of your brokenness.